on Zoom. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm with the Midtown Scholar Bookstore in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we're delighted to be here virtually with you for this evening's program with Kate Baer and Maggie Smith. First, just a huge thank you to all of our viewers, attendees, customers, friends, and everyone out there who is supporting indie bookstores. The challenges continue as we ramp up for the holiday season, but we're honored to be able to offer programming like tonight's event. And with that in mind, it's my honor to introduce our speakers here this evening. Our interviewer this evening is Maggie Smith. Maggie is the award-winning author of Good Bones, The Well Speaks of Its Own Poison, Lamp of the Body, and the national bestseller, Keep Moving, Notes on Loss, Creativity, and Change. A 2011 recipient of a creative writing fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, Smith has also received several individual excellence awards from the Ohio Arts Council, 2 Academy of American Poets Prizes, a Pushcart Prize, and fellowships from the Sustainable Arts Foundation and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. She has been widely published, appearing in the New York Times, the New Yorker, Paris Review, and the Best American Poetry, and more. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Maggie's new book that is now available is titled Goldenrod. Please, please, please purchase it through the Midtown Scholar Bookstore. I'll provide a link in a moment, or your local indie. Our featured author this evening is, of course, Kate Baer. Kate is an author and poet based on the East Coast. Her first book, What Kind of Woman, was a #1 New York Times instant bestseller and featured in publications such as Harper's Bazaar, Vogue.com, and the Chicago Review. Her work has also been published in the New Yorker, Literary Hub, and the New York Times. Of course, Kate's new book that we are here for this evening is titled I Hope This Finds You Well. Here it is. I've got to read just one blurb. This one's from Joanna Goddard, who writes, quote, "If you want your breath to catch and your heart to stop, turn to Kate Baer," end quote. Some quick housekeeping before we get started. One, if you have a question for Kate or Maggie, please use the Q&A button towards the bottom of the screen below our faces here. We'd love to hear from you, so ask away at any point, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible towards the end of the program. And most importantly, if you'd like to purchase a signed copy of I Hope This Finds You Well, here it is once again, please visit our website, midtownscholar.com, or simply look in the chat room to the right for a link. That is the #1 way to support the author, the bookstore, and this event series. Again, signed copies available at midtownscholar.com, or look in the chat room in just a moment. But now, without further ado, Kate Baer and Maggie Smith.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi, Kate. Thanks, Alex. It's so good to see you. We have to stop meeting like this in your house and mine.
I know. It's comfy for sure, but I would much rather move you to from the online friend to the in real life someday.
We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there. A few weeks ago, we were together for Goldenrod, if anyone is wondering. We've done this before, and I was telling Maggie, it's so wonderful to see you again like this. It's so fun to chat with friends, and this is an honor.
The honor is mine. This book. I think maybe probably before I try to pick your big beautiful brain about this book and the process of writing it, I'd like to hear some of them in your voice instead of just in my mind.
Sure.
Okay, good.
Yes, wonderful. And thank you, Alex, from the Midtown Scholar. Alex is a friend of mine too. It's my local bookstore. Yes, I'm going to read from I Hope This Finds You Well today. And if anyone is not familiar with it, I think probably if you're here on this Zoom, you are. I'm going to read first the original content of what I made the poem with, and then the poem I made. All of these messages are real and unedited, but the titles are mine. This is called When Chad is a Dad. I think it's funny how much you hate men and then go ahead and have this husband like he doesn't apply. Not buying your book, but if I was, I would get it for my daughters to show them how not to be. Even though you'll never see this, it's worth sharing not all women think like you or believe men are inherently against women. They might even say they appreciate men. Can't fathom this? Maybe read a book outside your What Kind of Woman bubble. Sincerely, a man who believes his daughters can be both independent and polite. It's funny how men go ahead and have daughters, even though they can't fathom what daughters can be. This one's called My Girlfriend from Another School. Even though I know you will probably just make this into one of your poems, can I just say women lose weight all the time and enjoy it? Their motivation is none of your business. My girlfriend loves to exercise and it's great. I will not be following, but I did scroll your account when a coworker reposted, and I cannot believe anyone finds this good. For example, may I be so bold as to bring up form, theme, tone, any structure whatsoever? I don't say this to discourage you, but to help. I will bring up one more point, then leave you alone. What is it about a healthy lifestyle that makes you so uncomfortable? Let women make the choice for themselves. I'm sure you could benefit from hopping on a treadmill or walking around what I'm sure is some townhome development. Even though you will make women lose their love, I will bring them to courage. I will bring them home. This last one is called My Daughter's Struggles. Sometimes it's hard for me to get through. It's the final poem in the book and pairs very well with When Chad is a Dad. Hi, I found your profile recently when a friend posted one of your poems to her stories. I just loved the way that you're able to repurpose words from nasty messages you get from strangers. I don't police my teenage daughter's social media, but I know she gets messages similar to the ugly ones you receive. Apparently, all women do. I'm horrified at what harassment women must simply accept as the price to pay for existing online. That you're able to turn these ugly and hateful messages into something different, something uplifting, just really touches some unknowable thing inside me. It gives me hope. I'll never deal with my daughter's online struggles. I'll never know what she knows. But by sharing your page with her, I can hope she's able to see whatever horrible words come to her DMs as what they are, words. Words she can define herself, rearrange, and repurpose to take away their intent to harm. Thank you so much for giving this dad so much needed hope in these hopeless times. My daughter's price to pay touches some unknowable thing inside me. I'll never know what she knows, but I can hope she's able to see herself and repurpose harm in hopeless times.
Oh, Kate, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, it's hard for my blood pressure not to go up. And it's hard for me to sit still when I'm listening to some of the messages. I mean, even just reading them in my own mind, I found myself sort of like clenching my fist when I got certain pieces of them. But I have to say, I love the book ending of that last poem and the dedication for my daughter in this book feels just right to me. And this idea of repurposing harm seems to be the sort of like ars poetica underneath this whole book in a way, you know? And so for the maybe few people who are joining us who haven't held this book in their hands yet, I want to know a little bit. I know you said you when you see the messages, you started to see the poem sort of like rise up out of them. It almost reminded me of sculpture, like seeing a piece of marble and being like, oh, there's a bird in that, or no, that's a man, and I just have to carve away all the pieces that aren't the thing that I know is inside of it. And I'm so curious about that way of talking back and repurposing, because it would not have occurred to me. If I received those messages, my reaction would have been to vent to someone, write back something angry, go for a run. I don't know what I would have done, but I probably wouldn't have made my own art out of it. And I would love to hear about that impulse.
Yeah, it was absolutely unexpected. I wasn't sitting around thinking about, I should look through my messages and start making poems out of them. I was new to erasure poetry. I knew about blackout poetry, but erasure poetry wasn't something that I was necessarily reading. Yeah, the first time was around when George Floyd was horrifically murdered, and I was, posting things about police reform, and it was a very contentious time. Obviously, it still is, but that was the time on the internet where there was a lot of vitriol back and forth, and I had a bunch of messages from people who disagreed with me. That's something that I expected.
Mm.
And as I was kind of going through and deleting them, I came across one from a woman who disagreed with me, and I was just looking at it on my phone ready to delete it, and the words kind of popped out at me, kind of rearranged in a different form. And honestly, it was just on a whim that I took a screenshot, hid her identity, erased some of the words, and posted it. And the response to it was so incredible. And I think just proves that there are so many people at odds with other people on the internet, and even more with people that they actually know. And yeah, it almost felt like a party trick at first. I was like, oh, I guess I can kind of do this, not just with messages to me that were upset, but also spam email that was coming my way. Your email inbox is flooded with all sorts of spam email, diet culture. And I never really thought about writing a whole book of them. I was asked a few times. I kept saying no. It was peak COVID, and I was homeschooling my kids and feeling really trapped in my house. And I thought, how am I going to be able to stare at messages from Chads all day while also having such a such a difficult home life? And I use difficult, I was fine, but it was hard. It was winter. My kids were home with me. I didn't have any childcare because of COVID. And so it was definitely an interesting process. I wrote in the Panera parking lot a lot of times with my laptop up on the steering wheel, trying to find a moment of quiet.
Been there. Like,
Yeah,
have so had meetings in my car
totally.
in the driveway with my laptop,
Yes.
because I'm like, I can get my Wi-Fi out there and my kids aren't going to hear anything. And I'm like, ignore the fact that I'm sitting
In my van. I know. I've had many meetings in my van. I used to be really embarrassed. I thought maybe if I like hang a curtain behind me, and then I just owned it. Like, yeah, I'm in my car. I know it's weird. I don't have an office. We hadn't moved yet. I don't have an office. I'm just going to be in my car. Yeah. So that's where this book was written, and kind of where it came from, if that answers the question.
No, I love that. And I'm wondering, did you have, especially with the ones that were particularly angry or sensitive, did you have any reticence about, like, what if this person recognizes this thing? Or what if, I mean, were you worried that people might reach out afterwards and a sort of, how dare you use
Yeah.
this in XY way?
Yeah, I was worried. And that was one of my first questions to my editor was,
Mhm.
can we even do this? Is
Yeah.
this even possible? She approached me with this book idea, and I thought, well, is this even legal? So, there were lawyers involved, and the answer, I guess, is yes, as long as their identity is hidden. We had two folders for this book. One was a smiley face and one was a frown face. So all the frown face ones, they didn't get permission. I didn't have to ask their permission, but I did get permission from all the smiley face. So I feel good about that. But I did not ask a Chad. I did block them all, but obviously they could still find me. I
Yeah.
blocked them. I block them always. It's not because of this book.
Right.
So, but they could still find me and message me, but that hasn't happened yet. Maybe they're too embarrassed. I'm not, I hope that's the answer.
I love that you call them the Chads.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good name.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many names, but it
So
works.
many names. Yeah.
I don't feel like shame generally is like high on the list, like on the emotional register.
Yeah.
I feel like outrage may like come a little bit more
Yes.
naturally.
I think so too. Yeah. Maybe they're afraid of another poem. I'm not sure, but I have not been contacted thus far about this book. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
suppose
gonna,
if someone has written something from something you've said, maybe that might encourage you not to continue to
yeah.
have an unwanted conversation if you thought that, perhaps it might be
Yes.
something else.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah. Sorry,
Are
go
you
ahead.
still seeing, I'm just wondering now that you have this you've trained your brain to do this. Like this is what
Yeah.
happens when it's like if you had written an entire book of sonnets, if you had written an entire book of villanelles, the erasure poem, you're training your brain to now see text
Right.
in a different way. And so I'm just wondering if you have been able to sort of toggle that off at all, or if now you have sort of opened up your brain to seeing sort of everything as possible poetry, which is sort of a magical thing.
Yeah. Well, first, I like to say I'm no longer taking submissions as far as messages go. Absolutely not taking any more. But yes, especially when I was writing the book, whenever I would get an email just about anything, I would kind of scan it to see if there were any good nouns and verbs. Because as you might guess, 90% of any messages to me could not be used because just logistically, there aren't enough nouns, there aren't enough verbs, there's not good language. A lot of nasty messages are just profane, which doesn't work for doesn't work for poetry and doesn't make any sense. Or they were just boring. There was a period of time when I would look at when I would get a message and just be really disappointed if they weren't using great words. Like if you're going to send me a message that's so ridiculous, maybe use some better nouns, get a dictionary. That would really help me out trying to write a book. So yeah, I have done it less and less, although I still find myself scanning when I'm reading a book. I'll read a few great sentences and find some words and I'll think, oh, if I crossed out this and this, I could make something out of it, which is fun and also weird. Yeah.
I love it. So can I ask the dreaded what are you working on now question? Because that's
Oh
the
no,
thing
of course.
about that's the thing about books of poems, right? It's like once it's in the world, it's been done for a while. Like there's
Been done for a while.
there's been some time where you had to finish the manuscript, get it off to your editor, do the legal review of the smiley and frowny faces, figure out what the cover's supposed to be, get it off to the printer, hope that supply chain issues don't affect the publication, wonder if you get to do in-person or Zoom events on all of that joyful process. So in the interim, I'm really curious to know what's cooking now.
Yeah. This book was finished before last Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And when I recorded the audiobook, I found myself being surprised. I was like, oh, gross. I don't want to read this again. I was shocked by what was in there, if that makes any sense. I was scheduled to write a second book, full-length book of poetry, much more in the vein of What Kind of Woman. That was what I signed to do next after What Kind of Woman. This is a little baby book that slipped in between. So I'm writing that third book now, scrambling and trying to get myself back in the space of writing. As you know, switching between PR and writing can be difficult. But I'm working on that book and that will come out fall 2022. See you back here next November.
I cannot wait to do this again. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And actually, you just said something that I think, for people who are with us who write, that sort of toggling between the sort of making of the thing and then the sort of delivering
about it
thing to the world and having to talk about it. It really is two different modes. And it's hard to find, at least I feel that way. It's hard to find time to write and get into that sort of inner space, that sort of inner life space where poems are made. It's a really hard thing to access in snippets. And so if you're recording a podcast and then you have a Zoom event and then you have an interview, or you're sort of doing the sort of media train for a thing, it's hard to sort of turn that forced extroversion
off. It's like I find myself needing to restart my computer in my brain. I have to restart and then not look at anything, not look at my emails, not look at my Instagram, not look at my phone, and just unplug, because it almost feels like a different version of me.
Yeah.
that is writing, and then there's the version of me that's talking, and both of them are real. I this is who I am right here sitting in my office, but it's such a different part of my brain that I'm using. Often when I sit down to write, I'll open a book on my lap. Sometimes it's Goldenrod by Maggie Smith
Oh.
or a novel, and I will read for 15, 20 minutes just to get my head in a different world, because I have just been in this world, which is not conducive to writing because my kids need me and my publicist needs me. And I have 16 wonderful emails in my inbox that also need me to talk to them about writing. And I have to get myself out of there. And often reading a book is the fastest ticket out.
I love that. It's sort of a palate cleanser in a
Yeah.
way. Is there a time of day that is best for you to do creative work versus the sort of like admin stuff, for lack of a better word?
That so much of that has to be logistics with childcare. I am a night owl by nature, but I don't have the luxury of staying up late because I have to get up in the morning with my kids.
Yeah.
So I've really had to just schedule the same. When they're in school, I'm working. When I have childcare, I'm working. I think that's often such a misconception about writing is when you, which I know, I'm sure you feel this way too, that like when the mood strikes me, maybe I will write this beautiful poem, but when the mood strikes me, I might be making spaghetti. I can quickly email myself some lines and some ideas, but so much of that work has to come through scheduled time, and that often happens just in a normal work day.
Same. I find myself working best morning and late night, and I think it's those like sort of fuzzy boundary times between sleeping and waking when I'm not yet sort of like into the world
Yeah.
fully, and my brain
Yeah.
is sort of like coming out of sleep and dream and then sort of like slipping toward that kind of
Yeah.
softer headspace. But most
Yes.
of the actual chunks of time I can get are during school hours.
Yes.
And it's like I might not feel particularly inspired between 9
Yeah.
and 11 a.m. But
Right,
that's
because I'm thinking about all the forms I need to fill out and how I don't have any plan for dinner and how I should probably switch the laundry. And it takes so much to get out of that. And that's the time of day when I'm also thinking about that, which can be difficult. Yeah.
I feel your pain. I mean, I don't know if it's enough to just commiserate, but I think there are so many of us who are, juggling the demands of other people. And that, I do think that feeds the work.
Yeah.
So it's this
Oh, of
interesting
course.
bind, right? Where it's like, well, if I weren't these
Yeah.
people's mother, if I weren't,
Yeah.
if this weren't my life, then all of this material would also just poof, be gone.
Exactly.
But I would also have
Yeah.
all this time and headspace and,
Well, yeah. And I also think people really romanticize writing and they romanticize what it's going to be like. And really, it's not like that at all. I'm sure this works for some writers, but I'll see suggestions to go on like a writing retreat and go in a cabin on a lake. For me, that would just put me in a complete panic. I would just want to sleep and like eat a snack by myself. For me, I can't force that to have to force myself to get everything done in one weekend. Just I don't know. I think there's this romantic idea that like if you go away to a cabin in the woods and sit down at a desk, you can write a novel. And for me, that doesn't make any sense at all.
well,
I'm
and
in it. I'm in my
good.
real life writing.
Yeah, you're in it. Yeah, you're in it. I had an in-person event, which I haven't gotten to do last night with my friend Saeed Jones. And he said something that touched me. And we were talking about writing in these times.
Yeah.
And this book is very much a writing in these times kind of book, right?
Sure.
Like the audacity of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
to find
Yeah.
you where you are and feel
Yeah.
like they have some advice to give or castigation or whatever the thing is. And we were talking about the need to also make space for joy in all of this. And so, whether it's inside the poems or outside the poems, I guess one of the questions I want to ask before we go to audience questions, because I see there are some in the chat, is sort of like, what's bringing you joy right now? What's keeping you afloat? Like, what things are getting you through that like part of the day where the coffee wears off and you're just like what things are feeding you?
My female friendships really feed me. They are as important to me as a marriage. They because of them, I can even be in my marriage. It's such an important part of my life, in my everyday work, in my everyday movements. I communicate with my female friends all day long, and that is something that has always sustained me and continues. I would not be able to work without them for so many different reasons. I find so much joy in that camaraderie and in that space. Reading also is something for me that brings me so much peace and joy. Saeed is like one of 5 males that I read. But most of them are women.
Where he's like, yes, I am.
Yeah. That also is something that brings me so much joy. Like I said, I have to start my writing day just reading, because it brings a piece to me that so few things do.
Oh, I love that. I live sort of surrounded by stacks of books, and I'm always hoping to get to more of them, but I think I would need that cabin in the woods.
Yeah. I have to read in like 15-minute increments.
Oh my gosh. There are so many good questions. And so I want to get to some of these, so I don't just talk and monopolize you. And everyone's like, Maggie, stop. We have questions. Okay. So I'm going to start here. This is from Tatiana. Kate, what gave you the impetus to take these messages and make redacted poetry? And did you ever feel raw and violated by these strangers, even though you were creating art? It feels like such a no-brainer, and yet I've never seen it before.
Hi, Tatiana. There were some poems we had to take out because they were too difficult. We felt like they were too difficult to read as the reader. There were also ones that felt like not my story to tell, that they were so harmful against other people, that those were the ones that were hardest for me. I had a whole, virtual stack of messages and emails to go through. And I felt on the worst days of writing this book, those were the ones that haunted me, the ones that were so degrading towards, LGBTQ people of color. Those were the ones that were so sickening, because I had to sit in it and think about all the ways I've contributed to this, and all the small ways that I'm part of this problem. And those were so difficult. And I think when reading this book, that is kind of also something I hope readers get from it. I think I've had a lot of questions of, why is this happening? And why are they so terrible? And something I would like us all to ask is, right, why is this happening? And how am I part of this? How am I contributing? What am I teaching my children about others? What am I making sure is being taught in schools to my kids about Native American history, Black history, sexuality, and gender? I think that is a big part of this, and that has been so uncomfortable, but also good for me to sit in. The things against me were hard, but also I could kind of get past it. There were a few that were very difficult, and I just kind of deleted them from my mind and didn't put them in this book. But mostly it was the ones against other people that felt so horrible. Yeah.
Well, and even some of the ones that you read tonight, it's hard not to listen and think, this person's referencing their spouse or referencing their child. So these are people in families. Like, this is somebody's dad who thought it was okay to email this to a stranger on the internet. This is someone's husband. This is someone's wife, someone's mother. And what is that dynamic like? And what
Right.
are those kids being raised to think? Or what is that wife who loves to work out? Maybe she doesn't love to work
Maybe
out.
she doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are people in relationships who have learned this and are teaching it,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
And that is a lot to carry. Um, Oh, from Susan, here's one. I'd love to know more about permissions. This is a good question, logistical question. Smiley versus sad faces to indicate who you would contact. Who determined which was which? And how were they differentiated? And why not ask either everyone permission or no one?
Yeah, so the sad face ones, those were all the negative messages, and we ultimately decided we didn't need to ask permission. But the ones that were reaching out to me and saying such beautiful things to me, or sharing their story, especially, there's one in the book about it's coming from a man, and he's talking about coming out to his father. I'm not gonna, of course, I would never print that without his permission. So yeah, that is how that was decided. It felt like the sad face messages didn't necessarily deserve that ask, but that the other ones absolutely did.
It's a courtesy, sort of, for the
Yeah.
people who deserved the courtesy.
Yeah, even if their names were redacted, there is a source page in the back, and a lot of them wanted to be credited, which I was so happy to do. I asked if you would like to be anonymous or not. Even if they were anonymous, I would have never felt comfortable printing without asking first.
I love the source page, the notes in the back, because some of these writers have also been able to point people toward other resources.
Yes.
So there's a writer who's pointing people toward national domestic violence resources. There are writers pointing people toward eating disorder support resources. And so, like, I think it's also an empowering thing to be able to send someone a message and have them make art out of it, and then to feel like your voice can do some tangible good
Yeah.
around these poems, which is, in this day and age, poems doing tangible good, I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good question. This is from Becca. Of all the messages in your book, what is the one thing or lesson you want your daughter to take away and know from reading it or hearing about your process of writing it? And it's dedicated. That's the dedication.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. I actually wrote up a whole long thing about why I dedicated to my daughter and then deleted it because it felt so emotional. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I can't even go there. Honestly, the number one lesson I'd like her to learn is to not create an Instagram account. Don't go on social media, like forever banned from that, or at least until you're 18. And yeah, as far as the book, I don't see this as a handbook for her or any sort of guidebook for her in any sense of the word. I don't think it's really within my realm to give her this as some sort of guiding force for her. I don't look at it like that. For me, she is definitely my most interesting child. I have four kids, and she has taught me the most. And I have learned so much writing this book, and I have learned so much from her. And so in that way, this book is for her. And also, don't make an Instagram account.
Oh, it's my greatest fear. Like,
fear.
My daughter is now almost 13. So I ask her, even if I take a picture of her, now I show it to her and I say, is this postable? And unfortunately, the answer is usually no.
Yeah.
Getting cats that practically jump up and down. The answer is usually no. I'm like, but look at your smile. But what if I make it black and white? See, look, okay, I made it black and white.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you are the one, you're navigating this before me. My daughter's only 8. You have so much to teach me someday when this comes, because it seems like the Wild West. The internet, I think that's something people forget, that the internet is still the Wild West. There are so few rules and regulations. It's not like a workplace where there are parameters. It's like anyone can say anything to anyone. And we're still so new. We're still so new in how we communicate. And that's that is partly what scares me about kids on the internet, is that we have so few rules in place for how we keep them safe. Even if we make the rules, the internet will break them and teach them how to unhack things. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. I
It's
hope she finds
everything all
hope
the
in
time.
hopeless times. I'll tell her to read the last poem because the dad said it better than me.
Oh, I love that. And I love that it's a dad. I mean, like the first time I read that poem, I was like, well, this is obviously a woman. And
Yeah.
then I was like, it's not. It's a
No,
dad.
it's a
And
dad.
that in itself, frankly, gives me hope.
Yeah. Same.
Here is a question from Shikha. How do you both create space for writing mentally, and what inspires you? And then she said, thank you. This is such a treat. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you. Go ahead, Maggie. You tell me how you create space, and I will take notes.
Are you thinking? I'm like,
I will
oh,
take notes while you say
you only
how
need
you
a
create
tiny
space.
post-it note because I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not great at creating space. I know my therapist today on Zoom was like, how are you caring for yourself? And I was like, I feel personally affronted by this question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, creating space mentally for writing, I think, while parenting children is really difficult, because I am most often in caregiver mode. And I'm able to sort of turn that off while they're in school. And so that's really what I try to do, is like they walk out the door, I lock it behind them.
Yeah.
I make my coffee, I put on a record,
Yeah.
and I do my best to either not check email right away. That's my other hack, is once I get into my email, I might never get out. It's like
Right.
quicksand.
It is. Yeah.
Because once you start getting, I mean, I have thousands of unread emails, and those of you who are waiting on replies from me are like, oh, that's why I have to
Yeah.
go back, because she avoids her emails. And I do, but it's only because I don't remember who the writer was, but someone posted something on Twitter years ago. It was like, do you want to write, or do you want to be known as the woman who responds quickly to emails?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Now, see, that's worth writing down right there, because
And
that is so true.
it was phrased better, but I was like, I don't
No.
want my legacy to be woman who quickly responds to emails. Now, I don't love that I'm probably known as someone who doesn't respond to emails, but I'm also writing. And so that for me is the trade-off, is trying to like at least shove off the admin stuff as much as I can, or say, I'm going to devote the first 45 minutes of my day to email.
Yeah.
And whatever I don't get to is going to have to wait till the next block of time, whether it's tomorrow for 45 minutes or 5 p.m. while dinner's cooking. I'll do a half hour, at the kitchen counter while something's happening. But trying to sort of like break my day into chunks, at least for me, is how I do it. And actually, here's the other thing. I do go to a cabin in the woods. I'm going to
See,
a
I
cabin
knew it worked for some people.
Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it's like I take my dog and I take tea and chocolate and comfy socks, and I sit in a chair in front of a fireplace and I write for like 12 hours a day.
Oh my
And
God.
because I can.
Yeah.
And it always feels like I'm somewhat possessed.
Yeah.
And I'm totally wrung out when I come home, but I get so much more done when I'm not moving the washer clothes to the dryer, and I'm not,
Right.
it's just, it's amazing how much I can get done without domestic stuff.
So you're saying if I go to a cabin in the woods, I won't just nap. This is my fear, that I'm going to set myself up for failure, that I'm going to get there and be like, maybe I should just sleep for 12 hours.
Sometimes I take a midday nap. Like I'll get up and write from like 8 to 2, and then I'm so booked I'll sleep for an hour, and then I'll get up and take like a shower, have a snack, and then I hit like round 2, or take a hike, and then and work way into the night, because I don't have little kids to get up and take care of in the morning if I go to a cabin in the woods. So it might be worth trying.
I think it is worth trying. And I love that. And I love the boundaries you're setting for yourself. I don't think that you should ever call yourself a woman who doesn't answer emails. You should be called a woman who has boundaries and has learned how to schedule time. I think that is hugely important when you're writing, is scheduling your time and protecting your time, protecting yourself, saying no to things that you don't actually want to do.
Oh, that's a big
That,
one. That's a
yes.
big one. I think 2022 is going to be my year of no, which sounds negative, but I
Yeah.
mean it as a sort of protective year of no. Like I'm going to be better about like, will I say yes to this and then resent it when the time comes that I have to do it? If I know
Right.
that now, why am I setting myself up?
Why am I saying yes?
Because I'm a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, because I think so many of us want to please and want to be the good girl, even though I would preach to anyone that no one needs to be the good girl. There's still something inside of me that wants to be her. I had some advice a few months ago, and that was when someone asks you for something or to do something, to wait one day, 24 hours before responding, which is very difficult for me, because when someone asks me to do something, my first response in my mind is say yes, because then I have that immediate, oh my goodness, thank you, you're so wonderful. I want to be wonderful. It's okay to want to be wonderful and giving and loving, but it's also okay to have boundaries. And I think you sound like you have a wonderful grasp of that. And it's hugely important when you're
Oh,
when you're
I'm
trying to write.
trying, but you're right. We don't want to be seen as difficult. I've thought about that a lot. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
seen as a difficult person. I do also love the dopamine hit of being
Yeah.
of that caregiver, caretaker giving
Right.
dopamine hit of like, what can I do for you? How
Yeah.
can I help? How can I show up? And I realize if we show up 15 times in a row for others, those are that maybe 15 times we're not showing up for ourselves in the way that we need to be, and how to like not just shut everything down, but how to get a healthier balance is something I'm
Yeah.
really working on. Another piece of advice a mentor gave me years ago, and maybe this is about creating space for writing too, is and maybe this is a Chad thing actually, but not only waiting 24 hours before saying yes, but responding or communicating things with the confidence of a 50-year-old white man.
Yeah. Right. And not saying
So
sorry, I didn't get back to you, but saying, well, I don't know
I
what to
can't,
say.
I don't have time. I'm busy.
I don't have time. Yeah.
Just like,
Thanks for your patience. But
thanks for your
here's,
or just being
yeah.
business-like instead of like
Yeah.
counting everything and like, how are your children? I see that so and so graduated and his braces are off. Just,
Yeah.
doing what you
Yeah.
need to do and getting in and getting
Yeah.
out. So working on that also.
Yeah. Same.
Okay, here is a question, anonymous question. Oh, this is I've been reading you since back in the days when you had a blog, which I adored, and lines from it still go through my head. The internet has changed so much since that time. I'd love to hear your reflections on how the changing internet has changed how you and other people are writing. Where do you think we go from here? That's a big question.
That's a big question. I think we go to TikTok. I think
Ooh, I'm too old for that.
not me personally. I think that's where we're headed, to like 10-second video clips. So I don't know if in a few years, if you want to be a poet, you have to quickly say it in 10 seconds. I'm not sure. Thank you so much for being here, anonymous person. I do often miss those times of just long form essay and just putting it out there and sharing it. I I wrote many an essay for Huffington Post on motherhood and anal fissures, and that was a time. It's so many things have changed. Instagram happened, white walls with beige babies happened, linen fiddle leaf figs. There's so many things that have happened on the internet that really, it wore me out. It was tiring. I felt like I had to become a brand and perform in a way that I was really uncomfortable doing. I miss certain parts of it, but in other ways, it's such a relief to let that go and to let my personal life be personal and my work speak for itself. But there are times that I do miss personal essay and writing in that way. But like I said, so much has changed. So much has changed. And I also want to get paid. I did a lot. I think this is an important part of this equation that people don't realize. I wrote for 10 years on the internet for free. And there are a lot of people who connected with that, and that was wonderful. And of course, helped lead to finding an agent and getting a book deal. But that was 10 years I was writing those pieces for free. Huffington Post didn't pay me. I didn't have ads on my blog. I didn't know anything about sponsored posts. No one paid me for those. And so I don't miss that. I don't miss having to do side hustles so that I could pay a babysitter, so that I could write for free. And I think that is something important to say because money is so often not talked about in the lit world.
That is the truth. That is the truth. Oh, here's a good question. This one's also anonymous. You both spoke of reading as being a sort of palate cleanser. What are you reading now, or what have you read recently that you've loved?
I am reading Elizabeth Strout's book right now. Oh, there we go. Yeah. I'm reading Elizabeth Strout's book, Oh, William, at the current moment, but I have not had a minute to catch up. I'm 3 paragraphs in, would love to read it. I'm leaving for my part of my book tour next week, and I'm going to take it on the plane, and I will let you know. What are you reading, Maggie?
I am always reading multiple things at the same time.
You love nonfiction. We talked about this last time.
I love nonfiction. So I'm usually reading like a few memoirs or essay collections.
That's what I do when people ask me. I like look around my desk. I'm like, what is
I have a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm just sort of knee deep in this one right now.
Oh, I've heard such wonderful things about
Memory
that book.
of Memory. And then poetry wise, I'm about halfway through because I'm like reading and rereading Kathleen Ossip's new book, July.
Oh, I've seen some excerpts of that are just incredible.
Like I have no idea how she does it.
Yeah,
like,
same.
None of this would have occurred to me. Like
yeah.
I'm reading these poems and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
It's magic. So
yeah.
I pretty much read I love every book I read, because if I pick it up or read the description and it doesn't sound good to me, I just don't bother.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the last time I didn't make it all the way through a book.
Same. It does not happen to me very often. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm just yeah, that's true. We have great taste. I also have people vet things for me pretty well. I take suggestions from people I know.
Yes.
We have the same taste in books. And so for the most part, it's always wonderful.
I think I'm going to ask one more question from the chat. And this is for both of us, and this is sort of related to our conversation about social media. This is also from Tatiana. You both seem to step away from social media very easily. Your energy is really calm and not insistent on being seen. Oh, that's nice. And do you find that helps your writing when you do that? And how do you manage to create these boundaries for yourself? I'm curious about this, because I don't feel, we were talking earlier about sort of toggling between sort of writing and creating mode, and then sort of like, now the thing is out there and you have to promote it. And the problem is that when you're in promotion mode on one thing, you're typically also in writing mode on the next thing. There's that overlap. Right. So when you're on book tour for book A, you're actually also writing book B.
Right.
And so
living it.
And living it. And
I'm living it right now.
The idea of, I don't know that I step away from social media very easily, because I see sometimes people say, I'm taking a break from social media to finish a book. And I think, I can't do that because I'm actually promoting a book while I'm finishing the book. And I feel like it would be an irresponsible thing to sort of peace out in the middle of book promotion to finish the next thing. And so I have no idea when I could actually take a legitimate break, unless there was enough lag time between finishing one thing and getting out the next. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm tempted to give like a super vague answer, but I think I can be very specific. First of all, and say, I'm not taking a break, like I'm not looking at my phone for 2 weeks. What I mean by take a break is put my phone in a different room and not look at it for 4 or 5 hours while I'm working. That is one thing. I also do feel like I need to create a boundary at times where I'm not responding to people, even when they're so wonderful. And I want to do that, but it does take a lot of emotional energy. And also it just logistically takes time. I, of course, open my phone and love to send a meme to a friend. That's so different to me than taking the time to read a bunch of messages, which of course I'm so grateful for, but there has to be a boundary there. There has to be a wall, or else I'll just get so sucked into that I'll never ever come up for air. And yes, you're right. When you're promoting one book, it's often the case that you're writing another. So it is difficult. I certainly have no good handbook or pointers for that. My only pointer is throw your phone in another room and then walk away. Walk away.
Walk away. Although I have to say, I think your readers will forgive you not quickly responding to every Instagram comment if they know that the reason you're not responding quickly to every Instagram comment is because you're writing more poems.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's the thing. It's really hard to do both. So the idea that maybe the person is not as readily available and present because they're making more things that they're really excited to share with you.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I can't wait to read the next book. I'm so excited about the next
Me too.
one.
I can't wait to read it, Maggie. I look forward to seeing what it's about.
Well, we'll chat about it when it happens. But in the meantime, there's this beauty that people can order signed copies of and support an indie bookstore in the meantime. So it's like,
there's Alex.
It's the best of win-wins. Actually, it's a win-win-win. You're doing something good. You're helping an author. You're helping an indie bookstore, and maybe you could buy a copy to gift to someone you love, which is like 4 wins.
It's 4 wins. Yes. Before I got into ever publishing a book, I had no idea why authors kept saying to buy from indie bookstores. It's like, yes, support the local economy. I didn't realize how crucial independent bookstores are to authors. So when you buy a book from an independent bookstore, you're basically helping not just all mankind, but just specifically you're helping authors who are trying to, keep being authors. And I really encourage people to go to your local bookstore, and especially Midtown Scholar, which is my personal local bookstore, an incredible organization, an incredible bookstore to support, great for the community. And if anyone's ever in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, stop by. It's a beautiful space.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Maggie. This was awesome. This was great. Let's do it again next year.
Yes.
The book is I Hope This Finds You Well. Here it is. We have signed copies available, like Kate and Maggie were saying. You can visit our website, midtownscholar.com, look in the chat room, or simply visit us in store. Kate was kind enough to come by last week. And how many did we sign, Kate? 1,000?
I don't know, 1,000? Yeah.
It's about 1,000 copies of the book. So we've got extra. Please purchase 1 or 2 or 3.
And Goldenrod.
And Goldenrod, yes. So thank you again to our audience. Thanks for your questions. And I'd just like to kick it back to Kate and Maggie for the last word.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for joining us and for asking such great questions. I could have asked a million questions about this book, and yet I did not have to because you asked such intelligent ones. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Maggie. You are a light in this world, and I appreciate you so much.
We'll do it again soon.
See you soon.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Take care.